In case you missed it, Dragon Ball cards have just become one of the most wanted collectibles of 2026. And more people are entering the hobby daily who are interested in Dragon Ball. I mean, for years, Dragon Ball cards have been ridiculed and somewhat mocked by other TCGs, though with the announcement of the Super Anime returning, along with the franchise looking to have a very strong future ahead, Dragon Ball cards have had a massive revival period and people want to learn more about how to collect this TCG. And honestly, thousands of fans are entering the Dragon Ball collecting market every day, and it seems in 2026 the future is very strong. So if you've been thinking of wanting to add Dragon Ball cards to your collection, well, you are at the right place. Now, this video is very useful if you're a complete beginner, and honestly, it's going to be also useful if you're collecting something like Pokemon as well, and you want to add some Dragon Ball to your collection. Now, before we continue, the one area that we need to discuss about Dragon Ball, and it's probably the part that every newcomer gets a little bit tripped up on, is the fact that Dragon Ball actually has two separate TCGs with two completely separate different release schedules. And honestly, it sounds complicated, but once you understand the split, it's pretty simple, though it kind of needs to be explained. So Dragon Ball's TCG currently has two lanes. There is Dragon Ball Masters and Dragon Ball Fusion World. Masters released in July of 2017, and Dragon Ball Fusion World released in February of 2024. So here's the reason why it's split, and here's the breakdown. Essentially, people felt Dragon Ball Masters got a little bit too complicated over the course of a few years. There was a long wall of text on a lot of cards, and the amount of abilities got very complicated. So Bandai essentially decided to do a soft reboot, and they created Dragon Ball Fusion World. Fusion World is a standalone game with the idea that it's very beginner friendly for anyone who wants to play the TCG. That's how Dragon Ball Fusion World was created, because of the complexity that kind of just creeped up with Dragon Ball Masters. Now, Fusion World did a massive change, and when it launched, it actually launched with a digital client. This was a huge move by Bandai, and it made it like a really easy experience to learn the game because you could just play the digital client. Though I suppose the confusion lies with the fact that even though Fusion World was created, Dragon Ball Masters never actually stopped. So they've essentially created two different TCGs running at the same time. And I think the confusion happens because you kind of assume when a soft reboot would have happened that, hey, we're kind of just transitioning that audience from one TCG into this new one. But no, you do have two different lanes that are still running in two different directions, and they're running parallel to one another. Now, in terms of which one you want to collect, there's a few key areas to understand. But personally, I actually collect both, though I know some people would like to stick in one lane, and that's totally fine. So let's start with Dragon Ball Masters. Now, a super simple breakdown of Masters, and I'm going to be talking about both, the positives and the negatives. So on one hand, a lot of collectors feel like Dragon Ball Masters is more exciting to collect over Fusion World. Masters delivers absolutely insane artworks that capture Dragon Ball characters really well. The textures and art style genuinely complement the characters perfectly, especially when focused on Saiyans and their auras. The big secret rares of Masters, they just do a really good job of making the card feel very powerful and alive. For example, here with the secret rare Gogeta, the textures and foiling look unbelievable, and they really draw out Gogeta as a character. They're just crafted very well, and they do have a big wow factor. Now, another really unique thing about Masters for collecting is that they actually have a rarity known as God Rare or GDR. God Rares are the top tier rarity, and they are exclusive to Dragon Ball Masters, and the pull rates for these are estimated to be like 1 in every 5 cases. I mean, there's so many collectors who've opened like 15 plus booster boxes and never hit 1 GDR. But these God Rares, the prices that they fetch is insane. And of course, I imagine in 2026, they're probably going to continue to climb because they are so rare to pull. And especially if you have more people entering the TCG, they will get more interested. But I mean, other aspects of Masters that are a little bit lacking, okay? So one area is that there's always this kind of looming feeling that, even though this is not even confirmed in any way at all, it's just a feeling that people have, but it's like, is it going to be discontinued? I mean, you'll see Reddit threads, people still get excited when a new set for Masters is releasing, even though there's been nothing confirmed that it's going to stop, but there is, for some reason, this question mark about the longevity. Though, now let's look at Dragon Ball Fusion World. As I said, Fusion World is a far more simple game to play. Now, Fusion World artworks, in some aspects, feel a little bit less exciting than Masters, Though a counter argument to this is that it's still super new and there's a lot of room to grow and experiment. Fusion World also seems like it has a very positive future ahead, especially since it's the newer and more simplified version, along with having a big focus to bring players in. This gives it a feeling of growth and longevity. Fusion World really excels here as it still feels like a new TCG and there's a big focus on bringing new people in. Fusion World has a ton of rarities and they also have a lot of alternate arts, and the highest rarity for Fusion World is known as a super alt art, and they've been definitely increasing in popularity as well. Though one area where I think Fusion World has shined is with their manga booster boxes, which have become super sought after. Manga booster boxes include original artworks from Akira Toriyama, and they are real throwbacks, especially if you loved like OG Dragon Ball. They contain a lot of artworks from there. These have become very popular, and arguably they're probably one of the greatest parts about the whole Dragon Ball TCG, and there's a massive fan base for these. Though that's just kind of the simplified differences for the two versions. There's obviously more, but at the end of the day, a lot of fans love actually collecting both, and there really isn't an issue by doing that. So I suppose if you are a newcomer, one piece of advice, and especially if you're collecting, just feel free to collect both. It just kind of like, you know, you don't have to choose one lane. I think that's what I want to make it really clear, especially if you're a newcomer. Don't think that, oh, it's Masters of Fusion World. If you want to play the TCG, sure, make that split, go for Fusion World, especially if you're a newcomer, it's just easier. But if you do want to collect, hey, do what I do, I collect both. Now also, I just want to say, if you have been enjoying the video, my name's Phil, and I cover topics about collectibles and a lot of Pokemon content as well. It's always awesome seeing new faces on the channel. If you love collecting TCGs, definitely feel free to subscribe to the channel. Now, in terms of Dragon Ball cards in 2026, there's actually a few areas that it really shines. And let's talk about the best thing about Dragon Ball cards, and that is their quality control. Unlike a lot of other TCGs, Dragon Ball is known for their insanely good quality control for cards. In fact, if you send a pack fresh card of Dragon Ball to PSA, a lot of them have over a 95% chance to be returned as a 10. This is actually really refreshing, and it's actually why so many fans love it. But because Dragon Ball cards do have such high quality control, you also have to understand that Beckett slabs are also a massive part of the collector market. So unlike Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh, where a lot of black labels don't even exist for a lot of cards, Dragon Ball cards get sent to BGS because they actually do have good chances to actually come back as BGS black labels. And honestly, I'd say this is easily the best part of Dragon Ball, and that's actually why I'm such a big fan of it. Even besides like that I'm a fan of the anime and all that, the reason why I love it is because it makes opening the packs so much more enjoyable. I mean, I don't want to make this video to compare it to other TCGs, but you know, like when I do collect Pokemon, it does sometimes feel super deflating opening packs, because I know if I open a chase and then I get it sent to get graded, I then have another huge hurdle to overcome where there's like a, 25 to 30% chance for some cards to come back as a PSA 10. And the fact that Dragon Ball really care about their quality control and they put such a big focus on that, that does make it a fantastic purchase for me. I think Dragon Ball cards have set the standard, and a lot of TCGs should look up to Bandai for how well they've handled the quality control. And honestly, it makes me far more confident to purchase sealed. Now, another area is that Dragon Ball also has such a positive future with the return of the anime, and that's very important if you're collecting as well, because you don't want to be collecting in something that feels like it's just gone downhill. And that's what Dragon Ball felt like for a lot of years, though 2026, this has shifted. The only real issue here is that if a lot of collectors merge over, or merge over from Pokemon or One Piece and get interested in Dragon Ball, and there may not be enough supply to meet the demand, and that definitely could happen, especially as, Dragon Ball is the godfather of anime. Even though it's been quiet for nearly like a decade, and there hasn't been hardly any movement in the franchise, it's still one of the biggest animes and franchises in the world, and it's cemented its place as like one of the legendary animes. Because Dragon Ball has that huge pull power, Dragon Ball cards definitely have the fan base, and with Fusion World being so catered to new players, there really does seem like there's a positive future for Dragon Ball cards for 2026, and especially beyond, because if the anime keeps growing, it's only going to grow in popularity. I mean, with all this said, Dragon Ball is an incredible TCG, and it did take a little bit long to get its love, and it's actually interesting because now it seems Fusion World and, Dragon Ball cards are all amazing, especially because they've been so popular, though a few years ago, no one thought this. Though I actually did have a bit of a feeling when Fusion World got announced and released that it would be an amazing long-term purchase, and you can actually see my reasoning in this video here. Over 2 years ago, I created this video where I spoke about Dragon Ball Fusion World, and I really did see a positive future for it. It is kind of coming into fruition now, so if you are interested in that video, click the video that's appearing on screen. Appreciate you watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.